Get control of yourself, Bear. You are not ready. Go home.
When you put together 2 parts Zelda Breath of the Wild, 3 parts Assassin's Creed, and 1 unholy obsession of blocks, you end up with quite an interesting game. Hello everyone, this is Wes from Against the Grain Gaming, and this is my review for Immortals Fenyx Rising. This story begins with Zeus becoming aware Typhon was released from his prison. Typhon then stripped away the powers of the other gods, and Zeus is only left with the god Prometheus for counsel. Prometheus and Zeus make an agreement that Prometheus will be released if the evil Typhon can be defeated by a mortal. Prometheus uses his ability of foresight and then begins to tell the tale of Fenyx. The player takes over as Fenyx after he or she washes up on the Golden Isle after a tragic shipwreck. The rest of the story takes place with Fenyx helping restore the powers of the other gods who lived on the island. Throughout the first 4 hours of the game, it was really nice to have the tale narrated by Prometheus, and having Zeus chime in after every few sentences. However, the story suffered from not following through with the narration of the entire adventure. As more side activities and locations were unlocked, Prometheus and Zeus talked less. The only times they would then speak up was when a large plot point or a new area was discovered, just to let the player know they were still there. Then, in the last 10% of the game, there were not many moments when the two were not back, telling the story once again. This led to the story feeling full of life during the first and last few hours, but eerily silent during the middle sessions. When moving over to the graphics, it really seemed the developers took some of their inspiration from Pixar films, where there is a consistent lighter tone even in the most dark of places. In a world which is covered by evil, bright, vibrant colors still prevail and bring hope to the player at every moment. This feels like a world which is once lived in long ago. Everything in the game is handcrafted, from the gigantic mountaintops to the small bands of forest or remains of Greek structures that have seen better days. In my 25 hours of playing through the game, I did not see the same structure used twice, nor did I see the exact same puzzle presented. It was impressive to see how objects had the proper weight applied to them, like pomegranates falling from the trees or the velocity of boulders bellowing towards a character and the impact they made when hitting the ground or a player's body. Boulders would burst into rocks, trees would topple then explode into a trunk, and the pomegranates fell from the trees with a hollow thud. The graphics then blend very well into the sounds of the Golden Isle. There is a consistent sound of animals or enemies wrestling around the empty grounds of the gods. When attacks are made, there is a slashing sound of metal and the fleshy sound of a target ringing to the ears of the player. After spending some of the time observing the different foes, the player can then get a sense of what enemy lurks nearby without even seeing them. At times, there are godlike trumpets which consume all sounds from brief moments, or even the enemy himself, Typhon, calling out for the player to be hunted down by a variety of his allies. The voices of all the main characters are done well. The performance which stands out the most is Prometheus, who is narrating the story of Fenyx's adventure, with Zeus by his side, making snide comments and contradictory statements to make himself look more like the unflawed god he wishes to be. As the main protagonist's voice, female Fenyx, sounded more fitting for the role. She carried more emotion when speaking to the various characters, and ended up becoming a force to be reckoned with, not only in abilities, but in confidence. One downside was the music. There was over 3 hours of recording for the soundtrack, but while playing the game, there was only about 4 tracks was consistently looped, from exploring music, to battle, to puzzle, and vault completion, and the Hall of the Gods. It would have been nice to have more of the tracks present themselves in more areas. The trend of a large variety of assets being underutilized merges into the gameplay. A player will find themselves in combat, exploring or solving puzzles, and this at no point is a negative aspect of gameplay, but is how it's managed. Most exploring has the player climbing to the top of a vantage point, looking down into the surrounding areas, and revealing tasks which can be carried out. These tasks can be collecting resources, locations of treasure, and environmental puzzles, including vaults. Then the player will decide to venture to the revealed locations to tackle the various tasks in any order they want to. Where the pattern turns sour is when solving countless puzzles or opening chests when all you are rewarded with is minimal resources to upgrade your character. After the first fourth of the game, I started to narrow down the types of puzzles which included a chest at the end because I knew my chances were higher for me to receive a new weapon or armor piece with the added bonus of achieving some resources which were needed to make my own weapons and armor stronger. Puzzles are the main part of this game. A player can find themselves spending up to 75% of their time solving puzzles and 25% in combat. This is very interesting because most of the upgrades are created towards the character's combat and traversal skills increasing, not logical puzzle skills. The puzzles are engaging at the least and frustrating at the most. The frustration comes from not the puzzle's challenge, but the finesse which is needed to solve some of the puzzles. Placing a group of boulders, hoping they will stay on a pressure plate for you to get into a sealed off room. Finding the right block, which was 100 meters away from where it was needed, or fighting to push a block and not get burned by some of the groups of laser beams, or just the few examples I ran into. To add more frustration, the player will find that over half of the puzzles involve blocks. It's as if the developers met and tried to decide what theme is still trending with the youth and decided to implement it to the game. But instead of building or destructing blocks, the player moves the blocks into the correct places to complete the puzzles over and over again. To round out the last 25% of gameplay is the combat. The game plays itself safe with ground and air foes. The foes have attacks which can be categorized into attacks which can be dodged or attacks that can be blocked. The player has two options, dodge or block attacks. When the player attacks, he or she can use a light or heavy attack, use a power-up, or use a godly special ability. The abilities and power uses up stamina, and stamina burns up quickly and recovers very slow. Summing up the combat, small skirmishes and boss battles feel engaging. The player will find the more consecutive hits that are being dealt to the foe, the combat tracker will increase. Later in the game, the combo tracker can be modified to deliver more damage from Fenyx's light and heavy attacks combos at the 35, 50, and 100 combo chains. Winding down to the end of your journey, you will find that the character has grown a lot in the abilities and in confidence, and the player will still be able to look at the game as a brief escape to the Golden Isle. But no matter how many block puzzles, high-hitting combos, or snide remarks from Zeus, the player will feel wanting. This is a good game, but for it to reach godlike status, a lot of work will have to be done to it. I hope Ubisoft continues to explore the universe of Immortals, with some added content and new types of puzzles, a story which stays consistent throughout, and combat which gives the player more abilities or different encounters. I feel this franchise could one day find itself as high as the constellations which paint our sky. So now this is your turn. I would really like to hear from you in the comment section on whether you enjoyed this game, you're going to pass the game, or you completely thought this game was a disaster. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you would like to subscribe for more, I plan on continuing to do more videos on game reviews and other gaming content. So for now, this is Wes signing out, and I hope that you all have a great day.